"I'll pay for dinner," she said. The single dad handed over a black card and left. She laughed when he reached for the check. Portia Ashwell actually laughed, not the polite kind, but the kind that carries a table, the kind that makes everyone look over. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, loud enough for the sommelier to hear. "I've got this. Let's not make it awkward." The Meridian Room did not encourage scenes. It was the kind of restaurant where the lighting was low by design and the waitstaff moved without making sound, where the menu had no prices because the people who ate here didn't need to see them. Portia Ashwell and her sister Claudia Voss sat across from Nathan Cole like judges at a panel they hadn't advertised. Nathan was in a clean button-down he'd ironed himself that morning, a jacket that was 2 seasons old, the kind of shoes that were taken care of rather than recently bought. Portia had noticed all of this within 4 minutes of sitting down. She noticed everything, always. It was what made her good at her job. "Really?" Nathan said. "I'd like to, Nathan." She said his name with a warmth that wasn't warm at all. "It's fine. You're Lily's friend. This is a welcome dinner. I'm hosting." She looked at Claudia. Claudia smiled the same smile. What Portia didn't know was that Nathan Cole's jacket, the one 2 seasons old and carefully pressed, had been set down next to a Patek Philippe watch he'd left in his daughter's backpack that morning, because she liked to look at it on the school bus. What she didn't know was that the credit card currently in Nathan's wallet was matte black and had no number on the front. What neither she nor Claudia, nor the sommelier who had quietly sided with them, knew was that by the time the dessert course arrived, Nathan would quietly lay that card on the table, thank them for the evening, and walk out. And the reversal that followed would travel faster than any of them expected through the very circles they thought they owned. 9 hours earlier, Nathan Cole had been on his knees on a kitchen floor, helping his 7-year-old daughter Maisie find her left shoe. It was always the left shoe. He'd looked under the couch, behind the radiator, inside the bag she used for art class, and in the refrigerator, which was not as absurd as it sounded, because Maisie had once left a shoe in the refrigerator and could not explain why. The right shoe was accounted for. The left shoe was apparently living its best life somewhere outside of linear time. "Maisie," he kept his voice even, "where did you last have it?" "On my foot," she said reasonably. "Before that." She thought about this with her whole face, the way she did everything, completely and without self-consciousness. "The mud puddle," she said finally. He found it by the back door, caked to the rubber mat. He cleaned it with a paper towel, helped her tie it, and had her at the bus stop with 40 seconds to spare. He stood on the sidewalk after the bus pulled away and looked at his watch. 7:43. He had a call at 9, a site review at 11, and a school fundraiser he'd agreed to co-chair at 6. Between 11 and 6, he'd left a gap where he was supposed to eat lunch and do something about the growing stack of mail on the kitchen counter that he had been spiritually avoiding for 2 weeks. He hadn't planned for dinner. The text from Lily Ashwell's mother had come in yesterday. "Maisie mentioned she's been spending a lot of time at our place after school. We'd love to have you over for dinner, properly. Portia." He'd said yes because Maisie adored Lily, and Lily was the first real friend she'd made since the move, and the move had been harder than Nathan had let himself say out loud. He'd said yes because it felt ungracious to say no to something that was, on its surface, kind. He hadn't met Portia Ashwell in person yet. He'd only seen her car, the kind that had a parking space named for it at the school, and received 3 previous texts that were all efficient and slightly formal, as though she'd drafted them and edited before sending. He'd formed an impression, not a judgment. He was trying not to judge. He ironed the shirt, found the jacket, made Maisie a real dinner before the babysitter arrived, because he'd learned that when he said "I'll be home by 9," Maisie didn't eat properly unless there was food waiting. He left her a note on the counter. "Pasta in the pot. Don't eat standing up. I love you, Dad." He drove to the Meridian Room and understood within 30 seconds that he had misread the situation. It wasn't a casual welcome dinner. The Meridian Room was not a neighborhood place. The hostess greeted Portia by name. The table was set with 4 glasses and no menus. Claudia Voss, Portia's younger sister, which he'd learned from Maisie's chattering, was already seated and had the precise energy of someone who'd been briefed. "Nathan?" Portia stood to greet him. She was elegant in the specific way that money becomes when it's had 2 generations to settle. Blonde, precisely so. Jewelry that was tasteful because it was real. She looked at his jacket with something that wasn't quite recognition and wasn't quite dismissal. Something more like categorization. She did it in half a second. He saw her do it. "Portia," he said, "thank you for having me." "Of course." She gestured to the seat across from her. "We wanted to put a face to the name. Lily talks about Maisie constantly." "Maisie has the same problem," he said. "I know more about Lily's preferred cartoon characters than I do about most news events." Claudia laughed at this. A small, genuine laugh that made him think she might, under different circumstances, be someone he'd find easy to talk to. "What do you do, Nathan?" Claudia asked. "Real estate," he said. "Development, mostly." Portia tilted her head fractionally. The expression that crossed her face was brief, but Nathan was a person who read rooms for a living, and he caught it. Development, not investment. She'd heard contractor, maybe, foreman, someone who worked at a site rather than owned it. He didn't correct her. He ordered the second cheapest wine on the list because it was genuinely good, and because he was not the kind of person who ordered the most expensive thing to prove a point. That had always struck him as its own kind of insecurity. The dinner was pleasant on the surface. The food was excellent. Claudia asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Portia asked questions and listened for different things, for calibration, for the information that would let her place him correctly on whatever map she used to navigate the world. She was not unkind. She was just certain, in the way people who have rarely been wrong become certain, that she already knew what kind of person Nathan Cole was, and that she was right, and that the kindness she was extending was appropriately scaled to that assessment. "Single parenting is such hard work," she said, somewhere in the middle of the main course. "I don't know how people manage without a support structure." "You find one," Nathan said, "or you build it." "Maisie's mother isn't," Claudia started, then caught herself. "She passed away," Nathan said, 4 years ago. A beat, genuine. Even Portia's expression softened for a moment. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. That was the complicated truth about Portia Ashwell. She wasn't a villain in the simple sense. She was a person with a rigid map who had placed Nathan at a wrong coordinate, and who would go on being kind and condescending simultaneously without fully recognizing the contradiction. "It's okay," Nathan said. "We figured it out." What he didn't know was what Portia would say to Claudia after he left that evening. What Portia didn't know was that he would hear it. The bill arrived without ceremony, tucked into a slim leather folder. Nathan reached for it on instinct, the same instinct that made him reach for the door, that made him carry things without being asked. It was just how he was wired. Cora had teased him about it constantly. "You'd pick up a check at your own funeral, Nathan." He was half smiling at the memory when Portia's hand covered the folder. "Oh, sweetheart." The word landed differently than she intended, or exactly as she intended, which was its own kind of problem. "I've got this. Let's not make it awkward." The sommelier, who had been hovering with the particular attentiveness of someone waiting for exactly this kind of resolution, stepped back almost imperceptibly. Claudia looked at the tablecloth. Nathan looked at Portia. "Really," he said, "I'd like to contribute." "Nathan?" Again, the warm tone that wasn't. "It's fine. This is our dinner, our invitation. You're a guest. Don't worry about it." He held her gaze for just a moment, long enough to be sure. Then he picked up his wallet, removed a card, set it on top of the leather folder. "Split it then," he said. "For the wine, at least." Portia glanced down. Her expression adjusted itself in real time, like a page loading, confusion, recalibration, something that wasn't quite embarrassment, but was adjacent to it. The card was matte black, no number on the front, no logo except the small, discreet engraving that people who recognized it recognized immediately, and people who didn't. The sommelier recognized it. His posture changed. Portia's hand lifted from the folder. She said nothing for a moment, which was unusual. Nathan had spent the entire dinner understanding that Portia Ashwell was a woman who always knew what to say. "That's," she started. "The wine was exceptional," Nathan said. He wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at the room, calmly, the way he looked at rooms. That burgundy in particular. "I'd ask for the vintage, but I don't want to seem like I'm showing off." He said this without irony. That was somehow the part that landed hardest. Claudia, across the table, was pressing her lips together. What Portia didn't know was that the card Nathan had set on the table was the kind that required a net worth review for approval and a dedicated concierge line available 24 hours. What she didn't know was that the development Nathan had described so plainly included 4 completed mixed-use projects in the metro area, 2 currently under construction, and 1 that had been written up in an architecture journal she subscribed to. What neither she nor Claudia knew, what nobody at the Meridian Room knew, was that the site Nathan had reviewed that morning at 11 was the plot adjacent to the building where Portia's wealth management firm occupied the top 2 floors. He had bought it 3 weeks ago, quietly, without fanfare. He wasn't going to mention it. It wasn't relevant to dinner. He split the bill, thanked them for the evening, and left. He sat in his car for a moment in the parking garage. The garage had a quiet that he liked, concrete and dim, honest about what it was. He pulled out his phone, texted the babysitter, 20 minutes. Then he sat and thought about nothing in particular, which was a skill he developed out of necessity after Cora died. The ability to just be still without the stillness becoming grief. His phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered out of habit. "Mr. Cole?" A man's voice, formal. "This is James Whitfield, from the Meridian Room. I wanted to personally ensure your experience tonight was..." "It was excellent," Nathan said. "Tell your kitchen the Branzino was perfect." A pause. "Of course, sir. We hope to see you again." "You will." He hung up, started the car. He did not think about Portia Ashwell's expression when she saw the card. He did not replay it for satisfaction. He had enough distance from his own ego, hard-won and not always comfortable, to know that the point of the evening wasn't the card. The point was Maisie and Lily, the girls who shared a lunch table every day and came home singing each other's songs. That was the only thing that actually mattered. He drove home, let himself in, relieved the babysitter, stood in the doorway of Maisie's room and watched her sleep. She was curled on her side, holding the small stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 18 months old. The rabbit's name was Warren, which she had chosen herself at age 2 with the confidence of someone naming a prime minister. Warren had one eye and no opinions, and had been through the washer 47 times by Nathan's count. He pulled the door to, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, stood at the counter looking at the mail he still hadn't opened. What Portia didn't know was that she would figure it out. Not tonight, but soon. The world these people moved in was not large, and information moved through it like weather. It took 6 days. Claudia found it first, because Claudia was the kind of person who, after a dinner that had left her feeling unsettled without knowing exactly why, typed a name into a search bar at midnight. She found the Architecture Journal article, the project profiles, the quiet philanthropic work, an endowment at the city's children's hospital, a scholarship fund at a school in a neighborhood where Portia's firm would never open an office. She texted her sister at 12:34 a.m. "We need to talk about Nathan Cole." Portia called her at 7 a.m. By 8 a.m., Portia had confirmed everything independently. By 9 a.m., she'd called her assistant and asked to be connected with Cole Development Group's main office. The woman who answered was professional and unhurried. And when Portia gave her name, there was a brief pause on the line. Not surprise exactly, but the particular pause of someone noting something relevant. "I'll pass along your message," the woman said. Nathan did not call back that day. He called back on Thursday from his car between a site meeting and school pickup. "Portia," he said, "what can I do for you?" "I wanted to apologize," she said, "for dinner." He was quiet for a moment. On the highway, a truck changed lanes ahead of him. He gave it room. "You were kind to invite me," he said. "I was patronizing," she said. This was harder to say than she'd expected, and she hadn't expected it to be easy. "And I'd like to not be, if you're open to another conversation." "I'm usually open to conversations," he said. "The girls want a play date this weekend," she said. "Lily specifically asked for Maisie, with—" She paused. "With real apple juice, apparently. Not the kind in the little boxes. It was very specific." He laughed. Actually laughed. It was a different sound than she'd expected. Easier. "Maisie's the same," he said. "She has opinions about juice." "Saturday?" Portia said. "Saturday," he said. When she hung up, she sat with it for a moment. Not comfortable, exactly. Something more honest than comfort. The slight internal shift of a person realizing they've been seeing clearly and wrongly at the same time. That they'd looked at a man and seen only what they expected to see and missed everything underneath it. She'd done it before. She would probably do it again. But this time she'd caught it, which was something. She went to the window of her office, looked at the building going up across the lot. She'd noticed it before, abstractly, the way you notice construction. As noise, as inconvenience, as an eventually finished thing in your peripheral vision. She noticed it differently now. Back at the Meridian Room, the sommelier had mentioned the card to the manager. The manager had mentioned the visit to the restaurant's owner. The owner had looked up Cole Development Group and made a note. 3 weeks later, they offered Nathan a standing reservation. He accepted, because the Branzino really was exceptional, and because Maisie had asked him what his favorite restaurant was, and he now had an answer. Claudia Voss called him the following week, separately from Portia, to ask a professional question about a property she was considering. He answered it directly, and without making it a big thing. She thanked him. He said it was nothing. She said she'd learned it wasn't. He said, "I'll bring that up with my daughter. She thinks everything is a big thing, and she's usually right." Claudia laughed, a real one. She sounds like Lily, she said. They're cut from the same cloth, Nathan said, which is mostly why I'm glad they found each other. On Saturday, Maisie wore her favorite dress, yellow with small white daisies, slightly too short because she'd grown 2 inches since September. She presented herself in the kitchen for inspection. Warren the rabbit was tucked under her arm. She had done her own hair, which meant it was partially successful. Nathan fixed the clip in the back without commenting on it. "How do I look?" she asked. "Distinguished," he said. She considered this. "Is that good?" "The best," he said. She accepted this and went to get her shoes, both of them, found without incident, because she'd put them by the door the night before, and made a little sign that said, "Shoes, here," with an arrow, which Nathan had photographed and saved because it was the most efficient thing she had ever done. They drove to Portia's house, which was large and set back from the street in the way that houses are when they're quietly certain of themselves. Lily appeared in the doorway before they'd finished parking, already calling Maisie's name. Maisie was out of the car before Nathan had fully stopped it. He watched the two of them disappear through the front door, already in the middle of a conversation they'd apparently been having in their heads since the last time they'd seen each other. No preamble, no reintroductions, just continuation. He thought, that's what it looks like when you find your person. He thought it about the girls, and only about the girls, and got out of the car. Portia met him at the door. No affectation this time. Just a woman with better posture than most, holding a mug of coffee, looking at him with the expression of someone who had done a genuine recalibration and was trying to be honest about where she'd landed. "They make it look easy," she said, nodding toward where the girls had vanished. "They haven't learned yet that it's supposed to be hard," Nathan said. Portia held his gaze. "Maybe they're right, and we're wrong." He considered this seriously, the way he considered things. "Maybe." She held up the coffee mug in offer. He nodded. They went inside. In the kitchen, through the window, he could see Maisie explaining something to Lily with great seriousness, both hands involved. Warren the rabbit apparently serving as a prop or visual aid. Lily was nodding with complete attention. Nathan wrapped his hands around the mug Portia handed him. Good coffee. Strong enough to mean something. Outside, 2 girls were changing the terms of the world one conversation at a time. Inside, 2 adults who had started wrong were trying, with some awkwardness and actual sincerity, to start again. It wasn't a big thing. Maisie would probably say it was. She was usually right.